Christian parenting. Aloha, friends. Welcome to the Monica Swanson podcast, powered by Christian Parenting. I am Monica Swanson, mom to 4 boys, wife to Dr. Dave, podcast host, and author of Boy Mom and Raising Amazing. Here on the podcast, it is my goal to bring you practical advice and biblical wisdom for raising amazing kids and building strong families. You can always find show notes over at monicaswanson.com/podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you'll be encouraged. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. And I just looked at the calendar as I'm recording and see that this will air on May 1st. So happy May Day. Here in Hawaii, we have Lei Day. So that's a fun fact. A lot of people will be wearing leis and schools put on little performances. So it's really sweet. But wherever you are, happy May. I'm just going to say that this is a month I've been waiting for all year. I've been looking forward to May because next Tuesday, May 7th, is the release of my next book, Becoming Homeschoolers. Give your kids a great education, a strong family, and a life they'll thank you for later. And I know you've probably heard me talking about it for many weeks leading up to this, but I want to thank you for just being with me on this journey. And if you happen to be new here or you haven't pre-ordered yet, I want you to know that there are some really sweet pre-order bonuses for that book. You're going to find links to them and learn more about them over in show notes. So definitely check out the show notes for this episode because whether or not you're a homeschooler, you're going to love the pre-order bonuses. So feel free to order the book as a gift for somebody or just to support me. That's totally okay too. But you're going to love the pre-order bonuses. And remember, pre-orders always get the best price. And the book should be on your doorstep on May 7th when it releases if you pre-order. So I'm really excited about that. But today we have a super special guest on the podcast. Sally Clarkson is a name most of you probably know. She is somebody who's written a ton of books and just made such an impact on our generation of Christian moms. She's homeschooled her 4 kids who are now adults, and she has a great relationship with them. She spends about half her time in England, and she loves to drink tea. So I'm imagining today that we are all just sitting down having tea together. I'm personally a coffee drinker, but hey, I can do tea with Sally. And just after all these years of following her and reading her books, it is such an honor to get to sit down and just ask her questions about raising her kids, about the culture in their home that she loves to talk about her home education experience, and then her relationship with her kids now that they are amazing young adults and what that looks like. So this is a time to just sit back, guys. I hope you can really imagine you're having tea with Sally. And when you hear her heart, I think you'll agree there's just this breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, okay, we can do this. She's super intentional in her parenting, loves to talk about discipleship, but really, she enjoyed her kids. She was all about the heart and about loving them well. And the family culture was just a beautiful part of raising her family. So I think you're going to love this conversation like I have. There's a few books I'm going to highly recommend if you haven't read Sally's books. Awakening Wonder is a great book about her homeschool experience that I'll link to in show notes. Also, The Life-Giving Home. My goodness, I've been so inspired by many of Sally's books, but also her husband Clay wrote a book called The 24 Family Ways. And this is one I often recommend when families want something to go through together, even with younger children. It's very character-based. It's really good. So I'll be linking to all of those in show notes. And today you can find show notes at monicaswanson.com/Sally-Clarkson. Now, before I dive into this interview, I want to pause real quick to thank you guys again for your ratings and reviews. And once a month, I like to read a review from somebody, and then I like to send that person a Starbucks card as a thank you. So today I am reading a recent review from author Tiffany Tutu. I love that name. She called the podcast binge-worthy and gave it 5 stars, and this is what she wrote. I'm so thankful God crossed this podcast path with mine. This is my favorite podcast to share with other moms. I know whichever stage of motherhood they are in, that they will leave empowered and refreshed. God is using Monica's voice to breathe fresh air into the lives of moms everywhere. I am forever grateful I am a recipient of that empowering breath. Wow, author Tiffany Tutu, thank you so much. That is really, really encouraging. Please email me at aloha@monicaswanson.com and I will send you a Starbucks card. Now, I will make a quick note here. I've heard from a number of people recently who are like, I really want to leave you a rating or review on your podcast, but I don't know how to do it. So here's what you do. When I'm done, you can hit pause and just right there on your phone, as long as you're on my podcast, whatever app you're on, you should be able to just scroll down. You're going to see 5 stars. You can simply tap on those. But if you want to take it a step further, go ahead and tap where it says leave a review, and you can just leave a few words about what you love most about the podcast. I read every one, and I'm always so encouraged. And I don't claim to understand how algorithms work, but truly it does help get this podcast in front of more people when you leave your ratings and reviews. And I just appreciate that so much. Okay. So now let's do this. Let's jump in and have tea with Sally Clarkson and learn more from her wisdom and experience. I'll have a few final words to say at the end, but I hope you're encouraged. Sally, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here with you today. It would be much nicer to be in your weather than in mine.
Well, I'm just so excited to get to talk to you. This has been a dream of mine for a long time. I've always wanted to get to just chat with you, and now we get to share this conversation with so many others. You're just somebody that I have followed and learned from. I've read so many of your books and just love your heart. And, I think I just would say you are a mentor to me, a virtual mentor, we call it. And I love that. And I know you talk actually about the whole concept of mentoring, and you're so all about discipleship and mentoring. So before we jump in and get to share some of your life and experience with everyone, can you just give people a quick introduction to who you are and where you are?
Okay, I'm Sally Clarkson, very proud and happy mother of 4 adult children, who 3 of the 4 live in the UK, in England and Scotland, and 1 lives as an actor in California. So I spend all my time going back and forth to their places. I'm an author of 31 or 32 books, and
Wow.
I podcast, and I have moved 24 times, 9 times internationally. And I love words, tea, friends, walking, and home education. So this is going to be really fun today.
Oh, so much fun. This is the best. And I'm just imagining hopefully everyone can grab their tea or coffee, and we get to learn a little bit from you. I actually was wanting to focus specifically on a book, and I couldn't decide. I was like, I love too many of her books. So this is going to be a
so
big
sweet.
combination. But I want to just go back, for those listening who have kids at home, which I think is probably most, maybe some grandparents listening, we would love to just get a vision for what it was like when your kids were young, some of the things that you did, the routines in your home. Can you just paint a picture for us?
I will. I absolutely love parenting. I had no idea. I'd never changed a diaper, did not babysit, had only brothers.
Same here.
But oh, really?
Yes, exact.
As I began to just to seek the Lord when I was pregnant, and I had spent many years in discipleship ministry in Eastern Europe, and I loved the life of Christ, and I saw how he passed on a whole vision. It was through relationship, through serving them, teaching them, being their friend, living with them, walking with them. And so it was as though the Lord almost whispered in my ear when I first had my first child, you're holding eternity. You're holding significant, a human being who's going to have eternal consequences.
Yes.
How will you so love this child that they will know that I'm a God of love? How will you so shape this child that they'll have virtue and give them a biblical worldview? So it was kind of from my past in ministry that I came into parenting.
Yes.
But kind of to make a long story short, we don't have all day. It's been really fun for me. I have a daughter who lives in Oxford, and she has 4 children, 5 and under. And it's so fun to watch her. It's like watching me.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would say to young parents is you have more capacity than you really think, but
Mm.
establishing rhythms and routines is so extremely important. For instance, daily, when Sarah's children get up, and this is what I did too, but she has a whole pile of wonderful books that while they're occupied eating their whatever it is, scrambled eggs or cereal or whatever, she first has a devotion with them with these beautiful picture books and talks to them about it. And then she reads from these incredible, beautiful literary books. And they're so used to it, they'll just sit in their little chair for an hour. And they're 5, 3, 2, and a baby.
Wow.
But you establish patterns, and then they have, for instance, we used to do this too, but at 5 o'clock at night, she'll say, "Okay, it's time for cleanup," and I used to put a timer on. I'll say, "We'll do it as fast as we can for 15 minutes." I'm just trying to give you some
Yes,
examples.
these are
But
good. These are good.
yeah, before they go to bed at night, you read them. They sit in their little room. They all are in one room, and they're read a devotion, and they're prayed for, and they sing a song, and they think this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what all families do. If you can train children into an expectation,
Yeah.
and that's so important because rhythms and routines, knowing what to expect, talking to a child before they go into church. We're going to use our quiet voice in here. Mommy is so proud of you. Or, I know that you have such potential to be so strong in your heart. And you tell them what that means when you go to visit company. But it's a training, talking, rhythms and routines.
Oh, yes. I love that. Did that come natural to you when your kids were young, or was that something you had to learn? Did somebody else teach you?
No one else taught me. I was kind of I'm very old, and I was kind of doing it all by experiment at the very
Yeah.
beginning. But Clay and I are partners in everything. We're intuitives on Myers-Briggs, and we talked about ideals and what we thought. But I had grown to really have a respect for training. No, not this. And if you read any educational manuals or scientific manuals, you see that children's brain patterns are developed at a very early age. So
Yeah.
whatever you're training in to expect, mommy loves you, kiss, 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 holding them, loving them, talking with them, narrating their lives. Now we're going to go into the kitchen and we're going to eat. Now, they're just taking it and learning all the time, but their little brains want vocabulary and they want direction. And so the
Yes.
more that we can provide that, you're still providing lots of room for creativity, lots of room for individuality, but it's the very basic patterns that give stability and organization to a home.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. And I know that books have been a big part of your life and raising your kids. Was that something you brought in with you? Did you discover your love of books as you raised the kids? Tell us a little bit about that.
I was probably the ADD child in my elementary school. I found school boring, and I was always tapping my foot, and Clay and I were actually missionaries in Vienna, Austria, and we were exposed to a lot of different people. We had a church that had 40 different nationalities. And
Wow.
as we were exposed to all of these incredible people, we thought, wow, we are supposedly educated, but we know nothing. And not nothing, but, we realized we
Yeah.
didn't know authors and musicians and ideas and philosophies and countries and politics. And so before we even had our first child, we'd never, ever heard of home education. We both talked about establishing a home where the finest artists were explored, the best writers were studied, the best that there was in music, the best there was in art, that we wanted to fill our home to give our children an appetite for what was excellent in the world. And so then
Wow.
I would read of other educators through history. And I thought, literature, I mean, we are people who are created for words and vocabulary.
Mhm.
And I thought reading great stories would give my children patterns for virtue. And I also thought, everything we did was not the norm. I also thought, I'm only going to give my children age-graded material, um, like math, one a year, a little bit of language arts, because I want them to all be
Mm.
together and listen to what we're going to
Mm.
do in our educational model.
Wow.
And so we didn't use age-graded curriculum for learning science, nature, literature. Everybody learned to,
Wow. Was that
this is
scary for you? Was that like were you nervous to do that? It sounds so out of the box for that time.
No, because I could see that I made it through school with relatively little effort and learned,
Yeah.
I didn't know about ideas and people and all.
Mm.
And I thought there's nothing I can do that can make it
Mm.
worse. And so I just
Wow.
trusted
Wow.
that we had the capacity to think clearly, love the Lord with your mind, and I'd learned a lot of that when I was living in Europe with lots of people where
Mm.
we had discussions and dinners in our home. And I thought, and also in Europe as well as in England, a lot of the education is through discussion and through narrating back. You read
Mhm.
a whole list of books and then you
Sure.
go to your professor and they'll say, defend this idea. What do you think of this? And I thought, that's such a better way to shape minds and thoughts. And
Yeah.
so I did kind of see an example of the mentoring relationship as opposed to the multiple choice and fill in the blank, which doesn't really
Mm.
create thinking capacity. And so I think that God just wired Clay and me both to be risk takers and to do things
Mhm.
intuitively that were wise. And
Mm.
we almost don't conform to any area of life. We were just made that way. I mean,
Well,
we
I
we
respect that.
conform to Scripture. We conform to
Yes.
God's principles. But if somebody just does something because everybody else has always done it, we question it.
Mm. Oh,
So.
that's so refreshing. I love that. If someone had told me 18 years ago when my older sons started homeschooling that one day they would be graduating from college with degrees in engineering and data analytics, I'm not sure if I would have believed you. I wouldn't have known how they could learn all those things since those are not my areas of expertise. Well, thankfully, God provided, and we found some great curriculums along the way. And the curriculum that my boys would say most prepared them for their studies was the Shorman math classes found at diveintomath.com. Now, Dive Into Math offers a biblical and historical foundation in their math classes, teaching the why of learning math. They have self-paced courses and state-of-the-art e-learning systems featuring expert video instruction, interactive assignments with auto-grading, auto recording, video solutions, and Q&A support with Dr. Shorman, which my boys did utilize. Now, Dr. Shorman is from Texas A&M. He is well studied, so smart, but he's moved here to the North Shore of Oahu, and we've gotten to know him well, and he is an amazing man we have so much respect for. This next year, as Levi starts high school, he'll be taking Dr. Shorman's Algebra 1 and 2, which teaches every concept on the PSAT, SAT, and ACT with over 200 practice questions. You guys, this is a great curriculum. I highly recommend if your kids are interested in college or at least you want to keep that door open, definitely go to diveintomath.com. Check out all that they have to offer. Let me know what you think. Can't wait to hear from you. Hey friends, with Mother's Day just around the corner, are you thinking about a truly special gift you might get your mom? I know every year I try to think of something unique, and I'm so excited to get to tell you about a really good idea. MyLifeInABook.com is a unique service that turns your mom's life stories into a beautiful book. Pretty cool, right? Here's how it works. Every week, MyLifeInABook.com will send your mom a question via email. These can be pre-written questions about her life or any custom questions you wish to ask. And then she can either type her response or record her voice. And MyLifeInABook.com will compile all of her responses into a beautiful keepsake book. And guess what? They can even create an audiobook if you prefer, using her voice recordings. It's like preserving her voice and her stories for eternity. Imagine discovering stories about her youth, her adventures, and the challenges she has overcome. This book becomes a legacy, something you and future generations can treasure forever. Your mom's given you a lifetime of stories. This is your chance to give her away to share them. Now, recently I was able to order mylifeinabook.com for my mom, and I cannot wait to hear all of her stories. She has such great stories. I can't wait to see them all in a book form. So check out mylifeinabook.com and use code Monica at checkout for 10% off. Create an unforgettable gift for your mom this Mother's Day. Again, that's mylifeinabook.com and use code Monica for 10% off today. I definitely want to talk more about education and all of that, but let's shift and just hear a little more about the relationship you built with your kids, because I love seeing now today the relationship you have with your adult children, and I know that begins young. So, can you share some of the things you did just to really establish that firm relationship with your kids?
I think again, my ponder was Christ, and Jesus was the servant leader. He washed 120 men toes. He made
Mm,
meals for his disciples. He walked along the way. He took children in his arms, and repeatedly he said, "They will know you by your love for one another." He told them that they needed to love and forgive one another. He freely loved, and he was really only hostile and angry towards the legalists, the Pharisees. And
mhm,
that's something to
mhm.
totally avoid as a parent, because every single child that you ever will have is different, different personalities, different capacities.
Yeah.
And so training for us was take them in your arms. One time, a friend of mine who is very pro child, what would you call it? Smacking. That's what they call it in England, which is terrible. But said, because I know that Clay wrote a book called Heartfelt Discipline, which is really more focused on training in the
Mhm,
heart than it is on some kind of threatening your children and to teach them to be afraid of you. And
mhm,
she said, "But you
mhm,
train all the time." And I said, "Well, of course I do. I want my children to know that they
mhm,
need to love us and respect us and love each other and respect each other." So, I was taking my children in my arms and talking to them and saying what was expected. We taught them this 24 family ways, and or I would take them out
mhm,
and say, this is what you need to do if you want to go back in and be with all the other people. We instructed,
mhm.
we trained, and we said, you have a choice
Yeah.
tonight. Will training. It's all over Deuteronomy. Um, if you choose
Mhm,
to apologize to your brother, if you choose to, you may not look at mommy that way, or would say, I'm allergic to whining. Oh, I
mhm,
can't understand whining. If you can
mhm,
talk in a normal voice, mommy can
mhm,
listen to you. So we instructed in the ways that we thought would give them a foundation of understanding what we expected. We gave them
mhm,
grace if they were exhausted because we had exhausted them and really they needed to go into bed. We tried to be age oriented, but the very most important thing for parents is to love and accept and affirm and value and touch and give
mm,
words of affirmation
mm,
to the little children. One
mhm.
time, my son said to me,
Wow.
Mommy, when you pay attention to me, I want to obey you. I want to do what you want me to do. But if you ignore me, I'll do
Wow.
whatever I need to do to get attention. And
Wow.
so we
Oh,
learned as we
yes.
went. We were not perfect, but I think that we became more loving and training and grace oriented as we went, because we saw that our children were naturally created, even with wild personalities,
Mhm,
to want to love
mhm.
and respond to us if we were loving, attentive, and kind and
Yes.
training oriented with them.
Oh, that's all so encouraging. I love it. And I suppose this ties well into the faith training, teaching them about God and scriptures. And then from what I've heard you say more recently, they've all grown up to really have a personal relationship with God that is a big part of their lives right now. So maybe some encouragement for moms who are like, how do I get there one day? It's hard for some parents to imagine that day when they're adults actually walking with the Lord personally. What'd you do to help foster that? And we know that kids have a free will. We know that parents don't have control, but what are some of the things you would encourage parents to do?
Over 800 times in Scripture, God mentions the heart. And so we tried to appeal
Mm.
to their heart. And, we did devotions every morning that when they woke up in the morning, they usually saw me reading my Bible and praying. And they just thought that's what adults
Mhm.
do. And so we
Mm.
would pray and discuss. I wrote a book about this, but the Life-Giving Table, we had
Mhm.
meals together most every night, had big discussions, talked about every possible thing in the world, asked them, what do you think? Well, why do you think he did that? Well, how would
Mm.
you evaluate that? Was it, and we talked
Mhm.
about God morning, noon, and night, just in our natural conversation. Oh my goodness, can you believe that God made such a beautiful sunset? I think that pink must have been one of his favorite colors. Or what mood was God in when
Mhm.
he created our golden retriever as a golden, wonderful puppy? Or I'm so grateful, or I'm really feeling angry today. Would you mind if would you pray
Mhm.
with mommy that I'll be more patient? So it was an organic
Mm.
love for God. You have
Yeah.
to love your God in front of your children because, in a sense,
Yes.
you are God to them. If you're walking
Mhm.
with the Lord and you're growing little by little in being patient, loving, kind, honest, virtuous, whatever, it's little by little. I'm
Mhm.
still
Right.
very self
Yeah.
centered, making mistakes, and God corrects me, and I'm still growing. But the most important
Yes.
thing is to have integrity, to worship God and to
Mm.
do what Christ would want us to do in front of them so that our words matched our model.
Absolutely. Yes. More is caught than taught in all of that. And I always say that's something you can't fake, right? It has to be an authentic overflow. And yet I love too your focus on rhythms and routines in the home, because I do think that it's normal for mom and dad to read God's word, right? It's normal for us to recognize his creation. And then that just becomes a part of, ingrained in who they are as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
I love. Cast a quick vision for your relationship with them now as adults. And I just would love to hear. My oldest is 24, so I'm a few years behind you, but I'm starting to experience what it's like to have real friendships with my sons as they become young men. So tell us what that's like
Mm-hmm.
now.
I was surprised because I hadn't had this kind of a family, but um, our friendship just grew over years. We had spent our time together.
Mhm.
We read the same books. We loved the same music. We traveled all over the world together. And uh, all children, I think, in their own way, introverts and extroverts, want to push their
Mhm.
boundaries a little bit when they become young adults. They want to have their
Mm.
own ideas. They want to explore their muscles. They also want people to love them. And but if
Mm.
you have earned a close relationship, if you've spent the time, if you've listened, if you've understood and talked and instructed, then
Mhm.
when they're teenagers, you're the one they're going to want to talk to. And then when they're young adults, and
Mhm.
all of my kids went through I may never come home stage, I'm going to go out into the world and change it. And then all of them, we all love to be together. I talk to my kids, they
Yeah.
live all over the world, multiple times
Yeah.
every week. I spend lots of time with
Mhm.
them. They counsel me, I
Mhm.
counsel them, but oddly, they all are kind of they're all authors. They're all
Yeah.
theologians. They A couple of them got their PhDs and are teaching in universities, and another one got her master's of
Amazing.
theology in Oxford, and she's teaching, writing, speaking. And then Nathan does a podcast. I mean, it was just our family culture. We loved the Lord
Yes.
together.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
know that it's a very tempting world But we stayed pretty close. We were very home centered. And I'll say the final thing that I think really clicked with them is we hosted conferences, and they were a part
Mm.
of ministering to people from the time they were very little.
Mm.
I would say, you know what? You're going to
Yeah.
make these parents smile. They're all
Mm.
tired and they have difficulties with their children, just like
Mm.
we have at home. But when you're polite and kind to them, it gives them hope. I'm so thankful you're serving with us.
Mm.
And they would be with us as we
Yeah.
prayed for all the people that were at our conferences. And so they got to see other adults
Mm-hmm.
praying, and they were part of
Right.
serving people. So they developed a self image of,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have something to give. And so it's not just about
Mm.
giving them the right um, the exact right. Did I say the right words? Did I go over all the right verses? No, it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's an
Yeah.
organic, life-giving, over a
Mm-hmm.
lifetime, they begin to perceive
Mm-hmm.
themselves as those who will serve Christ. So that we're having
Sure.
something for your children to serve in really kind of clicks all of
Mm-hmm.
the theology.
Oh, I love that. And it seems that homeschooling worked. They're pretty smart, all of them.
I didn't think they were. I mean, I
Oh,
thought, oh no, have we got enough of this and that? Because we just did
or,
what we knew how to do, not realizing that
mm,
our goal for them was to love
yeah.
learning and to give them tools for
Hmm.
research and for
Yes.
creativity. And they had a
Hmm.
lot more time than most of their peers had
Hmm.
to grow
Yeah.
intellectually,
Right.
to thrive, to build mental muscle. And so I think that a lot of
Hmm.
worry that parents have in home education isn't
Hmm.
necessary. They're going to be
Yeah.
fine, but
Yeah.
hopefully they'll also
Yeah.
love the Lord and be virtuous.
Oh, so good. Well, I'm super encouraged and will be, of course, linking to Awakening Wonder as well as many of your other books that have really inspired me in my home, in my family, and in homeschooling. But if you have a final word of encouragement, you've shared a lot already, but you want to leave us with one nugget of encouragement for all the parents out there. Maybe they've got little kids. They may or may not be homeschooling, but they're trying to raise up these little kids to be lights in the world. What's a final word of encouragement?
Well, first of all, just really quick, tell us about your book that's coming out and why did you write it? What's the main thought behind it?
Oh, I love that you asked that. Well, because I've written two other parenting books, and I haven't ever focused a lot on homeschooling because I think I'm aware that the majority still out there aren't homeschoolers, and I want to offer encouragement to everyone. But at one
Hmm.
point, and I tell this story in my book, Becoming Homeschoolers, tell the story that I was writing and talking to my husband, and it occurred to me that homeschooling wasn't just a little nice part of my boy's story, but that it was really the main story. In fact, I say that next to their relationship with God, homeschooling has been the greatest shaping factor in their life simply because of the hours it gave us all together and to, like you shared, explore, learn, create, be free to be who God made them to be and not to feel some pressure to conform to something and somebody else. So once I realized, like, wait a minute, I don't think I've been inauthentic in my writing. I mean, everything I share is my heart for parenting, intentional parenting and faith formation and all those things. But I felt like the full story would be that homeschooling is a really big part of our life as a family.
So
And
true. So true.
yeah, and that there's nothing I would rather share with the world than, for those on the fence, especially in the world today going, I don't think I could do it. Could I? And I'm like, that was me. That was me. I didn't think I
Yeah.
could do it, but I am so glad that I took the leap. And so really, this book is sharing our story, sharing my heart, but also a lot of research. I open with 20 good reasons to homeschool. And these are just for those people that are like, oh, hadn't thought of that. So it's just giving people
Hmm.
that nudge to maybe get off the fence and give it a try, as well as it's a guidebook. I did the work and the research to say, hey, from preschool to college, here's what you need to know. Let's not overcomplicate it. Share tons of resources and encouragement. And then I've got some chapters on extracurriculars, on sports. We're a big sports family. So how do you navigate sports as a homeschooler? And so it's so much of my heart. It really was, I will say, my favorite book I've written so far, just because it was such a joy to get to share this really special part of our family's adventures.
I'm so glad. Well, it makes sense, and I've thought a lot about that lately because I do have so many friends whose children were not homeschooled and weren't able to do it. But I've looked back, and I feel like throughout history, children have been more home-centered. Geniuses have been more home-centered,
Yes.
whatever, creatives, artists, whatever. And so I think that's a great idea. I think it'll help many people. They just need encouragement. We did the same when we wrote our first book, because we wanted people to know, that this really mattered. But I would say my last parting word is, you are exactly the parent that God created for your children to need. You will give them things that no one else will give them. You will have concerns or favorite occupations on your heart that are unique to your family. You might be a great cook. You might be an architect, whatever. And it's so rewarding to invest in a human being whose life goes into the world whole, emotionally strong, spiritually vibrant. And you can do this, and you don't have to know it all at once. You learn little by little. My children thought that I had been well educated because I was learning about the same books, the same people at the same time that they were. But they didn't know that it was my first time to be exposed to biographies and countries, and just give yourself time, love your children well, give yourself grace, and cultivate in yourself an excellent heart. You will grow in ways that you love because you're accountable to your children, and your heart is what they're going to draw from, your heart and your mind. So that's all I can say quickly.
Oh, so great. Okay. And then lastly, I'm so excited to hear that you have another book coming out. Can you share a little bit about what we can look forward to?
I think, I love writing and I love my books, but in the fall, I'm coming out with, I think it's my favorite book because it's a picture book. It's not, it's a large, you might consider it a coffee table book with hundreds of pictures and a lot of subjects covered from marriage to home to children to delight to difficulties to forgiveness and it's a reflection of my life while I was based in Oxford. It's Ponderings from Oxford, and it's called Well Lived. And I just kind of wanted to say, these are the things that mattered. And so it's coming out, and I'm really excited about it, mainly because it's so fun to do a picture book. I got to go with photographers in all these different places, and so it was a lot of fun. I'm excited about that.
Oh,
Well Lived is what it's called.
oh, I can't wait for that. And your tea time discipleship was also lovely. That had quite a few
That was
photos
a
in it as
picture book
well.
too. Yeah. I'm just going to end up with picture books. There we go.
They are beautiful. Well, when you've got scenes like that, you got to share it. So, well, Sally, thank you so much. I've been encouraged, and I'm sure everyone listening has been as well. So appreciate your time, and just can't wait to continue to learn from you and follow you.
Thank you. Well, the Lord bless you and bless your writing and your speaking.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation and just felt really encouraged by everything Sally shared. And be sure to go over to show notes to check out her books, the links to where you can follow her, and also to see all the pre-order bonuses and fun stuff with Becoming Homeschoolers. Wasn't that sweet that Sally flipped the mic on me? It surprised me, but that was super kind of her. And show notes can be found at monicaswanson.com/Sally-Clarkson. Okay, thank you again for being here. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, aloha.